nothing to do with them. But our brains said, if you don't talk to these people, this country is going to go up in smoke. We must know what has happened. We must know what is happening now. But we must not be diverted from our aim. Our aim is negotiations, to settle our problems through negotiations. African National Congress has not come here to claim victories. We have come to earnestly tackle the problems facing our country. We must emerge with a firm resolve to clear the path to a new and democratic order. South Africa must be the winner.
And that, of course, the late Nelson Mandela in his own words. And he says there, amongst other things, we must remember where we come from. We must remember what's happening right now, and we must not be diverted. We must not be diverted from the cause. So what is the cause? How far have we come? How far do we still have to go? Some of the questions we're delving into this morning, of course, within the context of District 6. We're coming to you live from the District 6 Museum in Cape Town and discussing many issues, the reconciliation. We've touched on the land restitution question. And, of course, also we want to talk about economic transformation. And we have a stellar cast assembled here. Fantastic conversation, and glad to see that you at home are also enjoying these conversations that we're having. And I just want to acknowledge some of those tweets coming through. This one from John Grobler, who says, besides being a day to celebrate Madiba's life, I must concur with one of the speakers in Cape Town that the rest of the year he is and his example are forgotten. District 6 is a fitting setting for today. Apartheid doomed a culture and an accent to extinction. And then this one from Justin Colbert, who says, thank you for giving these ladies a platform to express themselves. They are the future. And Victor Marawu says, it's just a do something with a camera to show people day. People are no longer doing it as Madiba did. They just want fame and popularity. Mzingisi Michael says, those young people at the back, they've answered the questions. The sad part is that I have to leave this couch now, but Morning Live is lit. And then Tao Mlambo says, there are more people in history whose presence and passion is larger than life itself, and they have a legacy that shines on, and in addition to that of Madiba. Kenneth Mungeka says, it signifies a day when the rich looters of the state, which make billions in evergreen contracts, and apartheid looters become business people. They became that after 1994, and they've turned their backs on the victims. Denzel Taylor says, great conversation, awesome setting, the tone is appropriate, the youth there are beyond impressive. The SABC should do more of this on a quarterly basis, perhaps in different parts of the country, different topics, away from the Twitterati. Well done, SABC. Tammy says, guys, your topic is poignant, more truthful. Your young guests are intelligent and eloquent. Speak to them again. We certainly shall. Malebu says the conversation, Sakina, in Cape Town is lit this morning. And this one from @1_shoe says, shows how we don't listen to the young and take seriously their inputs. Those girls at the back are on fire. Afigile says, beautiful sound from that instrument. And Nebagazi, maybe I wanted to ask you, what is the name of that instrument that you were playing? And as we get that mic to Nebagazi, another one says, that music, those two ladies, the perfect clicks from the non-Xhosa mother tongue speaker, a glimpse into the South Africa we need. What's that instrument, Nebagazi?
This is umkhube. It's played by young maidens, unmarried, and I scraped it, and there's a bigger one which has a gourd, isera, which is generally for the fermentation of sour cream, milk, English. But lona ngumkhube, umqange, inkangala, as far as Malawi we have it, and it's played by unmarried women. And
oh, fantastic. So let's continue with the discussion, and I want to hear, before we move forward, just from, again, the people in the back row there, the youngsters, and just getting your input on the discussion this morning. We've been talking about the land question, we've been talking about reconciliation, but what is it that stands out for you? Because this is International Mandela Day, and if nothing else, we all know Mandela. But, what are you taking away from this discussion?
Reconciliation stands out for me. And for me, I can never move on if I don't get back what is rightfully mine. Give me back what's mine so that we can move forward.
What is yours?
Like land, for instance. It's not mine, not saying it's mine, but like in order for us to reconcile, give me back what rightfully belongs to me so that we can move forward, so that I can be able to forgive you.
What is your name?
My name is Nanda.
Nanda. So, see, Nanda, when I ask you what is yours, I love what just happened there, because I don't want you to be apologetic about what you think is yours, because very often that's the problem today. We feel apologetic to assert that which rightfully becomes us. So I'm not trying to have you be apologetic about it. I'm just asking whether you have a sense of what that is that you want.
Well, it's land, to be quite honest.
And next to you, Nanda?
My name is Buhle Mvandaba. I'm from Group Seminary, and I'm the youngest of the group. What I can say is that the country from 94 sort of had this fairy tale in mind, and I don't think that the vision was properly executed. And I think that Mandela did his best. We can say he did his best, and his comrades, and the ANC should have carried on. The government is looting money, and they are stealing, whereas they could have helped take the country a bit further in terms of land distribution. The government have big paychecks, they earn a lot, and they've got billions under their names, and the rest of the black people are, still eating crumbs.
Let's drill down. You say the government is stealing. You say people have billions.
Yes.
What exactly are you talking about? Who are you talking about?
The corrupt government, your Jacob Zuma. I feel like we do not... Okay, let's say our elders. My grandmother loves Jacob Zuma. Well, not Jacob Zuma, but the ANC. And she dismisses the fact that, he's a horrible person. And she says, the National Party also did that. It's fine. The ANC has done a lot for this country, and we should not criticize them as much as we do. And I understand that the country has come a long way, but still... It shouldn't be forgotten that these people,
You see, the problem is, and I think this is as much an opportunity to learn and to teach. When you're going to say people are corrupt, you better be able to back it up. Because we may think they are corrupt, we may even know they are corrupt, but can we prove that they are corrupt? And this is how people get away with things, because we can't necessarily prove the things that we are saying.
Yes.
But what do you think we can do in order to try and move away from that sort of corrupt trajectory that we find ourselves on?
I think that, there's nothing much we can do but appeal to these people that not to look out for themselves only, and when they get to the top, that they forget who put them up there and why they are there, but to look out for everybody and to make sure that the country is headed to the right direction in terms of economic growth and equality.
So if we move the mic along, and your name?
My name is Asenati Kaba, and I'm a Group Seminarian student as well.
Asenati, so if you look at what is happening and you hear about the great Nelson Mandela and who he was, and you look at what is playing out today, what are your thoughts?
Well, we cannot deny that Mandela is like a world icon. Everybody knows him on an international scale at that. And I don't disregard the fact that he's done a lot for us, because if you actually count it all in total, 67 years is a lot, hence why we have 67 minutes. So we're not disregarding the fact that he's done a lot, but I just want, as a young person, and I'm still learning at that, and as a history student, there are people along the way that fought alongside him who don't get the same commemoration as he does. So, for example, like, we didn't know until this year on our CAPS syllabus for history that we got people like Anton Lembede. We didn't even know who he was, but we just know that he was part of the Youth League of the ANC. And we got commemorable people like Steve Biko, who played a huge role. But yes, Mandela is a great man, and he's done a lot for our country, and we all know him. And on reconciliation scale, we still got a long way to go, because when it comes to reconciliation, it's not, let me shake your hand and let's move on, it's done. It's just a matter of, you know what, it takes time. It doesn't matter how long it takes, but we're just hoping to get there as a country. And for this day of commemorating Mandela, he's a very great man. Yeah.
I love what you say when you say we didn't know who Anton Lembede was until we came across him in our CAPS curriculum this year. And so the responsibility, it would seem, rests with the school, with the education system to educate us as a nation. That cannot be right. Your parents never speak to you about these things? You don't speak to friends, other people in society about these things?
Well, for me, well, my mother never really sat down with me and talked to me about these things. And I know for a fact that the reason why she sent me to school, I must just sit and learn. But as my peer said in earlier on, that the amount of information that we get from textbook is a bare minimum. So for us to actually know these things, my remarkable history teacher, she makes the effort of actually getting clips and all the extra information that we need, so that we just don't get the fact that there's a person named Anton Lembede. How did he get there? We don't know how he got there or whatnot, alongside other people. So the mere fact that the CAP system or our textbooks are giving us minimum information, our teachers actually work extra hard for us to get to know these people, because as I recently said, we only got to know about him now.
Well, big ups to your teacher in that regard. And then very briefly, if we can move through there, because I want to hear your views as well. Young man, you haven't spoken.
Well, good morning to everyone. My name is Champ, and I am from Zola Business High. And so what I have taken from today's topic is actually that Nelson Mandela was a very big man. And for us as youth, we have to follow his footsteps and take to the future that he has built freedom for us. What are we as future doing with that freedom? Today, people from today, the future, I'm actually nervous right now.
Relax.
Okay, I'm going to speak on my behalf. Me and my father have taken from the Nelson Mandela's footsteps, and my dad has come up with a foundation that we as a family are going to help the others in need of school shoes and donate to them, because they cannot afford to buy school shoes. And for them to go to school and learn more about these certain things that are happening in this world, they have to have these school shoes, because if they don't have these school shoes, they'll be very embarrassed to go to school, because other children will be laughing at them. So me and my father have came up with this foundation, which is the Kasi Angel Foundation, and today for the 67 minutes we will be donating school shoes to the children in need in Danun. We'll be donating at about 200 pairs of shoes to school children in need.
And well done to you, and your dad is, of course, a colleague of ours here at the SABC. We'll get into that. But you know what? I want to come back to some of the topics that we want to discuss and move on to the question of reparations and economic transformation that some of you touched on earlier on. Joanne, let's start here with you. We talk about reparations. We talk about economic transformation. And yet someone mentioned that big word, the one that all those in power seem to shy away from so easily and so ably, and that word is inequality. So let's talk about what's happening with regard to the people who were removed, forcefully from their land, from their homes many years ago. Where is that transformation process with regard to the economic reparations?
I think in terms of we are further than what we were. You know, if I just particularly just look at this 36 situation, people lived here. They walked to work. They, you know, they were able to access places of employment. Having been moved out to the Cape Flats, the time people spend commuting to places of employment, traffic is a nightmare. People leave, you know, people spend up to 4 hours to get to their places of employment, and that has an impact, you know, on the family life. Mother leaves, father leaves at 5, 6 in the morning. We don't see the children. We're out there working. You've got to go back again. And then we have in the Western Cape, particularly in Cape Town, the city of Cape Town, in the name of gentrification, and also there's no, you know, there's land, there's not been placed a moratorium on land. So development takes place, and people are being, as the young people said, they are being actually forcibly removed. Owners of buildings, they increase rent. Rental, the cheapest rental that you go around the CBD right now is 10,000 rand. So for a family that cannot afford that, you forcibly removed, you're being sent to Blikkiesdorp and all those places, 30 kilometers. So it impacts economically. Again, we do not have money to get to our places of employment. So we're still way off. And, you know, in terms of also the economy, it starts very much linked to economy is education. And, you know, we're having right now, in terms of the fact that I'm livid, and I'm sure many South Africans are, that our Minister of Education is putting or talking about no repeat policy in foundation phase. Now, life has taught me that if I don't succeed now, I've got to go back and got to fix it, work on it, and then we progress. So if you're telling me a grade 1 learner that cannot read, and you know, they do not meet the requirements of literacy, numeracy, they do not meet it, but we move them along. We move them along. So then we want to prevent, what is that? And I'm going a bit off the topic, but I'm just going to wrap it up now. We want to prevent high dropout rates when we get to grade 9 and 10. Hello.
Well, it's actually not off topic, because this is what leads to the inequality that we ultimately find ourselves grappling with. Swangile Sam, you know, also just speaking to that matter, but of course, I'm struggling, wondering how it is that a people, a nation that was able to stand up against the most repressive government, the most repressive regime in the world, are struggling today to find not only their voices, but their agency to push back and make sure that they get what is due to them. What's going on?
I want to go back to the question that you've asked earlier on before we went on break, as to are we ready to dream together, as one of my peers said earlier on. My answer to that is no. We are not ready to dream together. For an example, as an educator, if you have one child who's coming from the townships and is coming to my school on an empty stomach, the rule is you cannot teach a child on an empty stomach. So meaning that child will sit in that class daydreaming about his next meal, while his peer who's coming from the upper class, who's had it all, had the breakfast, will be able to relate to the lesson that I'm teaching. Meaning now, what I'm going to get out of those two students, it's not the same result. So what I'm saying is, we should look at what is happening at schools. Because if you look at one of Mandela's famous quotes is, he says, education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. But in our case, education is the most powerful weapon which we can use to change us as South Africans. You understand? But now if we're not getting the proper facilities in our schools, we're not going to get the right result.
Are we beyond, Irma, the point of actually seeking a reparation right now for the atrocities of the past? Are we beyond that right now?
I think where we are at is that as South Africans and people coming out of working class communities, we need to practice self-determination, because I think we're stuck in a codependent relationship with government, and like with any codependent relationship, as a victim, you need to move towards becoming a survivor. You need to take a stand and say this relationship is not working, because as the learner earlier said, is that a lot of young people today experience that intergenerational conflict where their parents still revere the old leadership of the ANC, which is clearly corrupt. So I feel there's an intergenerational conflict that is holding us back. And so if we can just revisit the chant of people's power that stood tall in the 80s, then I think we can move forward. Because when we talk about government or governance, what are we actually talking about? Are we talking about the state and the parliament? Or are we talking about how do we run our communities? How do we run our families? And if we're going to take our agency back, it needs to start in our street. And this missionary complex of middle-class people who come into our communities, who want to teach us, they need to take a step back and enable us with the resources and allow us to tell them what it is that we need. So for me, that is the take-home message in terms of Mandela Day, is that organize, organize, organize in our communities, take our power back, and pick up the baton that we left in 1994 when we gave our power over, thinking that the ANC leaders are simply going to do what we expect them to do.
And Naledi, let's bring you in there. How do people do that? Because easier said than done. You know, we live in a society where people have, as the Chief Justice pointed out yesterday during a speech that he gave, we've outsourced our thinking as a nation. So how do we reclaim that?
I think that it's more of a situation of where the gaze is located at, right? We are in a country that has a very strong protest culture. I think there's even a stats that can attest to this, to the fact that people in this country protest at every level of society, from service delivery protest to student protest. High school students are protesting, and high school students have been protesting in Gugs and Philippi for a while right now. And I think it's just a matter of not operating in silos, and I think that a lot of linking of struggles needs to happen, because at this very moment in our organizing, it's stratified according to where you find yourself. You find yourself in the university space, you limit your organizing to the university space, and then in that you're not refining what's the politic that's grounding your organizing, because you're not having perspective, you're not having the community and that grassroots experience that makes us better at holding, I guess, the government accountable, because that's what a large part of protesting is. We are testing democracy, and I think that's a very important thing that happens. You look at the miners, of the Marikana miners, you look at Kanya's in jail, a Fees-Musful activist who's still currently in jail at this very moment. We are doing this just that we're being met with a lot of hostility, and you speak to people who already are dealing with issues of stomach politics, where you are struggling at the most basic socio-economic level, and you're telling them that they must be active, engaged citizens in this country. Because, I mean, we all know that we need engaged citizenship, but what's more important, your food or that, for example? But despite that, people continue doing that. You look at Abahlali, you look at, there's so many examples in our very recent history, before the Fees-Musful moment as well. I think now, maybe with the emergence of social media and all of that, things are coming to light and being more prominent. But I just feel like we mustn't erase the work that people were doing in the early 2000s. I think the biggest thing we saw was the TAC camp. People have been organizing, is what I'm trying to say.
But they need to
We need to just consolidate and be more coherent and coordinated. And I think that way, I don't think it's an issue of the lack of agency amongst us. I think it's an issue of lack of coordination, perhaps.
Okay. Perfect point, but we've got a minute before we need to go to that ad break. And Dr. Verwoerd, I want to pulse you on this with regard to reparations. What went wrong with the reparations process?
Well, I think it was unfortunate that the TRC wasn't given more power in terms of the reparation process, and it got caught up in sort of political dynamics where the government didn't take on the reparation. So that's the one level. But I think the major issue for people from my community, in the broader white community, is that we've not actually dealt with the bigger picture underlying the TRC. I mean, we focus on a few individual gross human rights violations, but the systemic violence of apartheid, forced removals, racial classifications, past laws, all those very, very intricate ways in which people's lives were destroyed. We haven't really understood that. So if we talk about reparations, we need to address those issues as well as the individual human rights violations. And I think that's the challenge that we need to almost do a lot of re-education with younger people, but also people of my generation, that there's a remarkable lack of historical awareness. Nobody supported apartheid. Like, it's quite convenient now to distance ourselves and make my grandfather the scapegoat, for the evil of apartheid. We share that responsibility, and therefore, for the sake of real reconciliation, we need to re-educate ourselves and become involved, humbly, in processes of real restitution.
And I think that is such a profound note on which to go to this break, because everybody needs to own their culpability in what's going on here, including the government when it comes to reparations, because how soon we've forgotten. Dr. Verwoerd is so right that it was our government, this self-same government, that actually opposed those who were supported by the Kulumani support group when they tried to get reparations from multinationals overseas. You know that? Forgot that? Well, we'll continue after the break.